Hello, and welcome to this episode of Fratello Talks, the weekly short-form podcast where we skip the intro and jump right into it. This week, I'm joined by my colleagues,
Daan
and
Lex.
And we are going to be discussing watches that change the way we look at watches. It's a bit of a deep topic, I feel. The days are getting short. It's a very existential time of the year.
So
it's also the happiest time of the year.
Oh, yeah.
Some would sing and some would say, but no, we're going to be sort of looking at some. I'm trying to sell it here. I'm trying to sell it as best I can.
In the Christmas spirit. Look at the little.
No, we're not there yet. It's November. Anyway, before we derail, let's re-rail. Let's quickly re-rail. And but before we get into the topic, as always, we're going to see what's on your wrists. Let's start with you, Lex. What is that?
I'll derail the whole conversation right away. This is the new Bell & Ross BR03. It is now a 41 millimeter watch square.
Steel?
This is there's also a green version, a ceramic green version that would actually match the chinos really well. But I'm wearing the steel version, the basic one.
Wow, basic.
Yeah, basic for Bell & Ross. It's Bell & Ross basic.
That's what the B stands for.
Yeah. Basic and
BNR.
Robust.
Basic and robust.
Basic and
that's how we like them.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind wearing it at all. It sits well. The quality of the rubber strap. I'm doing a review now. The quality of the rubber review is really nice. It's very consistent in its design. I like the fact that it's now a little bit smaller. I
think the money's been deposited in your bank account at this point. Like,
okay,
so
then
you're good.
on to you.
No, I'm joking. It's an interesting thing because I haven't seen much Bell & Ross in the metal. A little bit at Watches and Wonders, but seeing it again and seeing it not in the sort of sweaty rush that is Watches and Wonders. It's
everything
kind of
was
nice
embargoed. What we saw.
That was also
so
kind
we
of
forgot
made things
about it.
tricky.
Yeah.
Exactly, we immediately forgot about it. It's terrible.
We can't write about it now. We forget it.
Exactly.
We forget
No,
it.
but it's also nice to see it without having too many other Bell & Ross watches around it.
Yeah, you don't want to see the whole flock.
A bit overwhelmed.
Exactly. Sure, it's very square. It's a lot of but I have to say it's a
not
bit
bad, is it?
It's not terrible, and it's also
not terrible.
no, but in a good way. It's
yeah,
a bit
try
like the
to save
Panerai,
yourself now.
A bit the Panerai effect, where you see it and you think that probably doesn't work. It's very big. It's quite bulky. But then looking at it on your wrist, it's quite slim.
Yeah.
It wears more within its circular proportions than its square proportions.
Having said that, we put Daan's Seiko. What is the?
It's the SPB 317.
Anyway, that's a 41 millimeter watch.
Right,
we put it next to it. My God, it looks like a dwarf.
Okay.
Because round and square are completely
different.
Incomparable.
A square peg and a round hole. It doesn't really work. But Daan, what is on your wrist?
Thank you.
Just to move swiftly on from this Bell & Ross.
I'm wearing my Oris Art Blakey.
Very nice.
That's a nice watch.
Yeah, I put it on a bone clip.
Yeah.
And makes it look a little bit more jazzy.
Yeah.
And
it matches the look because you have that sort of those applied markers, I suppose, but it's one of those where when you look at it without knowing the association, you think, oh, that's quite cool, quite a cool design. But then when you know,
that's
when
a
you know,
good thing, right?
it's subtle.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's achieved subtlety and charm, and when you do know what it's about, it's also quite nice.
I'm going to write a story about watches that mimic musical instruments.
That's nice.
I did cars, and now
now that you got rid of the car analogy,
because actually this is, of course, this mimics a dashboard, a cockpit instrument,
your Bell & Ross,
which is also very gimmicky in the end.
Sure, yeah,
and you can argue that is also a bit gimmicky, but at least that one is done so subtly that it's very, very difficult to.
Maybe the article should be about subtlety in watch design and where has it gone?
Where has it gone? A question: is Art Blakey also your favorite drummer?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the Jazz Messengers.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you wearing?
I am wearing a little Hamilton khaki field automatic, 38 millimeter model, on a green strap, matchy as always. No, but it's
good.
but it's
nice to do matchy.
Yeah.
What's wrong with matchy?
Nothing wrong
I think
with
it's
it.
frowned upon.
Nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
I've realized that I really like green straps. I don't love brown. I don't love black, and I end up putting a lot of green straps on my watches, and it's kind of become a thing lately, and I enjoy it, and I think it's still a great watch. It's one that I'll grab and wear for a solid week or two when the time sort of strikes. And
is the crown out, or is it just very?
No, it's
big?
a very big crown. They've actually made it smaller in the newer models. This is an older one from 2017.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from the top side, and the crown looks absolutely massive.
Yeah. I like that.
It's functional.
I like that. It's cool. It's still when it was a little quirkier. Now they've kind of dumbed it down a little bit, or they've made it maybe improved it.
They made it smaller. You mean?
No. They haven't made it smaller, but they've changed it slightly. It's a little bit thicker. The crown's a little bit smaller. They've upgraded it, but it's a bit like the Chopard Mille Miglia. It's lost its charm a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
It's what they've done makes sense. But something about what was originally there.
It removed character.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But
subtlety.
Yes, for sure. But speaking of looking at watches in close detail, or maybe not so close detail, but let's get into the topic today. So we haven't pre-talked too much with the topic, but I know that I have some notes that I've written down and some thoughts that I've gone through already.
Maybe we should just listen to you.
Yeah. Do you want to listen to me? This will be
it'll
be like an audiobook. Okay.
Yeah, come on.
Chapter 1.
This is Nacho Talks.
Yeah, let's get started. Welcome to Nacho Talks, the long form ranting podcast where we don't have an intro. Can't afford an intro. No, but so let me give you guys an example, and then perhaps it sparks some thoughts and we can have a bit of discussion. One example that I went with is Citizen ProMaster NY0040. Which is you probably don't even know about it, right? So when I was
Daan, please respond.
Yeah.
React.
So, exactly. No, but the reason, obviously, the watch in itself doesn't mean much. It's just a watch that exists and continues to exist. But to me, it changed how I look at watches because in the early days of collecting, I really wanted an automatic dive watch and I really wanted an SKX. But being a uni student and my beer budget having overwhelmed my watch budget, no,
priorities, man. Priorities.
No, but there was no budget, right, for anything. So it was a bit like, well, the SKX was just a little too expensive. But in my sort of eBay hunting days, I managed to get myself a Citizen ProMaster, which is something that popped up when I was researching the SKX as an alternative. And I have to say, getting that as an alternative was really nice because it showed me that sometimes the hype watch, not that the SKX is necessarily a hype watch, but it was very popular. It was the forum darling, and everybody that was kind of the go-to first automatic watch.
Still is,
and it still has this cult following. It's a great thing. But the NY0040, the Citizen ProMaster, it showed me that sometimes an alternative can be just as good, because that watch actually has quite a few features that I learned later that I prefer to the SKX. So it has the crown at 8 o'clock, which is quite unusual, but also quite nice. It means it stays away from your wrist. It also has a 60 click bezel, which is quite nice. And it has a slightly better movement that can be hand wound as well. I don't think that it hacks. It might hack, it might not, but it's just slightly better in all those ways to the SKX.
So it's not like a Tudor and a Rolex comparison.
No.
It really is.
They really sit evenly. They're sort of like contemporaries. They came out within a year of each other in 1996, and that really showed me that sometimes the popular option and what people go with, as appealing as it might be and as interesting as it might seem, that if you do your research and you look into it and you sort of go down the rabbit hole and read, you can find alternatives that are just as good, if not better. And I still own that watch and still love that watch. And you know, it's one that's I've gone diving with and all kinds of things. So it's that was the lesson that I learned, and it changed a little bit maybe not how I look at watches themselves, but a little bit about how I look at collecting watches and approaching a desire for a specific watch.
I think you still look for the unusual suspects, right?
Sometimes, yeah. And I mean, this one, it was pretty fantastic because I grabbed it for $50. So I paid 50 euros for that watch. I think it retails for about 200, but it was a great deal. It was an older one, and I really like it. And the more I learned about it, the more I liked it. It comes with a great oyster bracelet with a dive extension. I mean, it's a brilliant watch, and it goes to show that the most popular option is not always the best. Yeah,
cool.
So. On to you guys. Do we have anything that comes to mind?
I have
still thinking on this option.
Rock, paper, scissors for it.
I was going through my collection in my head, and I think every watch tells you something about.
But what was the first? It could also be a watch you never owned, right? Could also
Definitely,
be like a watch because that's okay.
Well, you could say MB&F changed how you look at watches because of their designs, and that it goes to show that it's
You could say that.
Yeah,
I won't.
Me neither.
Not to put words in your mouth.
No.
But I think the watch I'm wearing, the Art Blakey, the Oris Art Blakey, is more or less is the first luxury watch that I bought myself. Before that, I had an SKX, the watch you just talked about, and I used to wear a Seiko Kinetic for 15 years before that.
Right.
But that's the watch I was going to mention.
Really?
No.
I thought so.
But in a way, this is the first experience I have with a luxury watch, with also a proper automatic watch, I would say, and. It was nice because I didn't really know that much about watches yet. I didn't really know there were categories like sports watches or dress watches or whatever kind of watches.
Yeah.
And I just bought it because I thought it looked good. Oris was in a price range I thought was reasonable.
Yeah.
For a reasonable amount of quality as well. Mm-hmm. And I still really, really like it. And what it taught me is that also with the strap you can totally change a watch because it came on a leather very boring brown leather strap, which makes it also look a bit boring, but then you change the strap and becomes a different kind of watch,
right?
But also that it is a dress watch, or I think in essence it was meant to be a dress watch. It has 30 meters of water resistance, but I also wore it for I think a year and a half, day in, day out. And I didn't even think about it.
Right.
So you can wear your watch anywhere and it still looks
it's quite very versatile, I think.
And like specs are not everything.
No, for sure. And I think sometimes it's perhaps something that we lack now. Like in the unique position in which we are, we get to see a lot of watches, we get to experience a lot of watches that we don't own. But going back to the days where you could just look at something and go, I like this. And you don't have to carry the baggage. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to say, but is it this? Is it good? Is it not good? Is it value? Is it not value? Is it gonna devalue? Is it gonna hold value? Like all these things that you think about now, all the baggage you carry as somebody who knows about watches and who writes about watches, it probably calls back to a time where you just saw it and thought, this is nice. I like this.
Exactly.
You just go for it.
Right now, maybe. I think I would.
It's a very good looking watch.
But But you have these commenters as well below our articles. Sometimes
they do. Shout out to the commenters.
The water resistance is not up to standards,
sure.
They totally disqualify a watch sometimes for that.
But I get that. The reason why I went with
I totally get it as well, but it's a shame. Like you say, like maybe you should just try out the watch or wear it for a while and then
for sure,
see what it feels like. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I went with this Hamilton is because it has 100 meters of water resistance, and not no. But that was part of it.
Sometimes it's nice because it makes it very easy to wear everywhere, and you don't have to think about it.
Remove some.
I think it is one of the disadvantages of my Speedmaster is that I just don't dare wear it in the water. And
Right.
you can,
Yeah,
maybe
right.
you can do it, but that's one of the things I don't like. I also it does have its advantages. To,
Sure.
Just the reassurance that it's just going to.
But would you say
the
in the water
out,
as in like actually swimming, or would you say like in the heavy rain, the lovely heavy rain that we have so often here in Holland?
I just don't go
day?
out in rain anyway.
Okay.
Because it wreaks havoc on my hair.
Oh,
So,
of course. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Right.
Perfect. Okay, so
Lex.
to move on to you, Lex.
Yeah,
So
I was. So my
tell us more about the Bell & Ross.
Yeah, no. Because this is actually the watch that no. The thing is, my very first watch was a Timex, like a little tiny dive watch with a tropic style rubber strap. It actually looks a little bit like a Blancpain 55. Yeah, I have it at home.
Cool.
I will bring it to you.
Send me a little picture on WhatsApp. We'll put it in the article.
Exactly. Yeah. It's super cool. It's super small. I wore it as a kid, hand-bound and everything. So later on, the swatch became big. I had a Sir swatch, for instance, that I recently rebought after visiting the museum. I also had one where you could open the ski lift with. It was a Sean Palmer limited edition.
The ski data
blah,
ones.
blah, blah. But there was and you meant psychokinetic. I was absolutely fascinated by those. Also because there was this version with I think there was orange and yellow, and they fascinated me, but not in the way that I needed to have one. It was only there is this watch I will never own, but that I saw in magazines and in the Armband Uhren catalog, and that was actually together with a friend of mine. We sort of, I don't know exactly how it happened, and of course I knew about watches also because of National Geographic, so I saw all the Rolex ads and all that stuff. This almost sounds like a cliche. Anyway, the watch that absolutely got my full attention and dragged me into the whole world of actually auto horlogerie, because I think that's what got to me. It was the IWC Il Destriero Scafusia. Do you know that watch?
I can't conjure up an image in my head, but we'll
describe it.
We'll put one in the article.
That was it. It was after all the brands recovered from the quartz crisis, they wanted to present themselves in the most complicated ways, because they wanted to prove to the world that was actually the original way to go.
Sure. To appeal by doubling down, right? It's like
exactly.
Quartz will never achieve this.
Exactly. So they I think it was for I don't know exactly what year it came out. We will find that out. It was for they had to celebrate something, and Il Destriero Scafusia means the war horse from Schaffhausen.
Okay.
So it was like and it's based on a 7750 movement, and then they put all this. Let's just say they put all these watch toppings on it. So it has all the complications and what have you. And later they also made a smaller version, was called the Grand Complication. But that was the thing. And I read about it, and it's almost like reading about. I'm not gonna use a car analogy, but I will. It's almost like reading about these 12 cylinders. It's this complexity, and that is something that really grabbed me. So because of that watch, I went deeper into the complications and everything. And for a long time, that was also actually a thing people would get most excited about.
Right.
Is about tourbillons and perpetual calendars and minute repeaters and rattrapants and all that.
Show us what you got.
And monopoussoirs and now everything is about, of course, about is it retro? Is it it's way less about that.
Materials and design, and it's a little different.
So that was actually that watch. I just couldn't fathom how that would possibly work. How someone could construct something like that.
Right.
Hats off to Mr. Kurt Klaus. And then of course, and then you get. Once you're in there, you go to Patek, you go to all the other horologery brands, and that's really what caught my attention, and also the way they decorated movements, etc., etc. So that for me was, I think, that watch really
was eye-opening, I suppose.
Yeah,
in some way.
completely. Yeah, that
Right,
was like
right.
the eureka moment.
Right.
And and maybe also because of that watch, and we had that discussion a little bit earlier today when we looked at Blancpain, etc.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it could be nice as well to have that classical watchmaking back, as in a sense of the beautiful complications, where the emphasis is put on that, and not necessarily on Tuesday, November 7th, 1959, we did 3 dive watches with a little orange dot on the case back, and now we brought that back to life. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's I think that gets a little old, and therefore, and you mentioned MB&F, and therefore I also kind of admire these watchmakers who try to come up with clever and technical solutions for complications and other ways of
But that latest release from MB&F,
holy moly,
it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's got a thermometer in it.
Yeah.
It's just, and you wind it by spinning the whole
Yeah.
thing. It's completely nuts. I really want to see that in person whenever it is
Absolutely.
that we next get a chance to. But that is
I think
incredible.
I think it's time. Maybe 2024 will be like a new year that we all go on horological adventures again instead, and we look forward and we will have an open mind to discover new things instead of just keep on regurgitating.
I think it's
the same stuff.
It has to happen. It has to happen. It's kind of like a bubble, right? We discussed this a little bit this morning, and we're kind of derailing a little bit. But don't worry, I'll pull us back. I'll pull us back on the rails in a minute. In a minute. Let me first derail further. No, but it's one of those things where you go, okay, vintage divers, and just kind of hitting that dead horse over and over again. It's been great. It has been great.
Yeah.
We've enjoyed it. But at this point, you sort of go, okay, but what's next? Where do we get that sort of palate cleanser?
Yeah.
Where does it go? And I think MB&F is like rushing for that finish line, or for the next door into the next room, and whatever's inside of it, we don't know. But I think that they're one of the brands that's really sort of leading the charge towards that kind of thing. And I think that their watches are basically eye-opening to any of us, because Lange is impressive, Patek is impressive,
definitely.
But it's very traditional.
Yeah.
So I think that like what they're able to achieve with traditional watchmaking, yet giving it this modern aesthetic and this other way of sort of just thinking about it and approaching it is pretty fantastic.
Yeah,
so I think MB&F definitely is, I would say, a brand that changes the way you look at watches as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
And the same way that the Freak once did.
Absolutely.
Because that's also actually
but the Freak was ahead of its time.
Yeah, very, very much.
I think that now is
that's
like,
also a watch I should mention, because I remember when that came out, it was also wow, and it's so nice to be dazzled. Absolutely, in a way.
Yeah,
that way.
I remember having that in my first. So this will be my second pick. It's not on the list actually. The derailing continues. No, but a watch that really actually it's much more sincere, I feel, than what I put on the list. Was a Van Cleef & Arpels watch. I saw it at Watches and Wonders. I was very cynical going into the meeting. I thought, jewelry brand and whatever, and it's all so brand. Shiny and whatever. And I don't know why I was in that mindset, but then going into the meeting and seeing it, exactly, so jaded, so young. But I saw this watch, and it was showing you the time using these flowers that would open. Wow. The petals of the flowers would open, and it would tell you it was just, and I thought, this is really serious stuff here. Like these guys are not messing around. No. Like to do this, you really have to like it's mechanically impressive. It's artistically impressive.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is absolutely not for me.
No, but
I would never wear one of those.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating and very interesting. And then looking at all the automatons and everything that they do,
fascinating stuff.
It's just every time. Now I always take the meeting because you know that there's going to be something there that you're going to go, wow, okay. This is not going to be the most talked about watch of the show, but it could well deserve to be. Yeah. Because what they do is just incredible.
Very impressive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it changed my mind because I thought I completely underestimated them. And then coming out was just like, wow. It was just completely blown away by that
Nice.
brand.
Yeah.
Anything else comes to mind?
Yeah,
Dan?
I had the same thing with Hermes actually at Watches
okay.
and Wonders,
Yeah.
because they showed us some pieces with what dials that were made out of 2,000 pieces of leather that form a tiger.
Yeah.
And I was just, it's amazing. I think it's a 36 or 38 millimeter watch, and it's just. Yeah, the craftsmanship that goes into those watches is beyond anything. So that really shows you that it can be jewelry and exactly.
Yeah.
It's
but also a very credible sort of watch maker, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the world timer that they also had, which was just a brilliant complication, and it's
was
not
that with the imaginary
the world,
the imaginary world,
the equestrian world. Wow.
Yeah.
Fantastic, so poetic, so original,
and then just
lovely.
at a click of a button, you advance and it goes around the world. It's very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, I agree.
They make you look at time in a different way. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, there's nothing like underestimating a brand or going in with a preconceived notion, and you think Hermes, you think these belts that these guys wear with the big H on it, and that's what the brand was to me at first, in my ignorant first impression, and then now knowing a little more, you sort of go, it's very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. Hey, well, it's good to still manage to be impressed, even in our very sort of like perpetual contact with watches and
true.
We're lucky that we get to see a lot, but I think that sometimes then you become this very hard to impress person. But still interesting to be shown new perspectives by watches, and I think that we will. Put it to our audience now. If they've had any watches that have changed the way that they look at watches, leave a comment and let us know a watch that's changed how you look at watches. And of course, join us next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. Oh, and like and subscribe. Don't forget. Come on.
Do it.